year is 1917. World War I has left Russia exhausted, demoralized, and hungry for change. In March, the people of Russia had enough and launched an insurrection against the Tsarist autocracy, ending the existence of the Russian Empire. And with it, more than 300 years of oppressive rule under the Tsars. However, the change of power was not carried out by the people, as the Tsar was persuaded by his own advisors, generals, and members of his state Duma that his surrender could bring social peace. Subsequently, to the dismay of the people, the Duma declared itself the temporary, or provisional, government, with Georgy Lvov as its prime minister, and Alexander Kerensky in second in command. This provisional government became increasingly unpopular as debt, inflation, and unemployment continued to rise. Factory owners were unable to cope with their workers' demands, and the number of strikes rose dramatically as these shortcomings continued to accumulate. The people that despised this new government defected to parties that reflected their own images of change. One of the most popular parties was the Russian Social Democratic Party, or RSDP, which was split into two factions: the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, and the Mensheviks, who were led by Julius Martov. The party was communist in orientation, meaning it believed in all property being publicly owned, and each person is paid and works according to their needs and abilities. They strived to take a stand against capitalism, destroy it, and create a government that prioritized the workers. This groundbreaking revolution led to the creation of one of the most powerful nations in history. As time went on, the RSDP was able to gain momentum, influence, and supporters, as patience with the provisional government wore thin. What were intended to be peaceful anti-war demonstrations became more and more violent the longer the government neglected its issues. The appointed supreme commander of the provisional government's armed forces, Lavr Kornilov, tried to bring the RSDP to its knees by sending a battalion of soldiers to assault their headquarters in St. Petersburg. However, this plan failed, as railroad workers and the RSDP's military, the Red Guard, stopped the trains containing Kornilov's troops, ending the attack before it began. With a leftward swing in political opinion after Kornilov's failed attempt to destroy the RSDP, the Bolsheviks led a siege on the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg, the headquarters of the provisional government. The offensive met little resistance due to the lack of soldiers still willing to serve the government, and quickly took over the palace. There they overthrew the provisional government and established the Russian Socialist Federative Soviet Republic, or RSFSR, with Vladimir Lenin at its head, and fellow revolutionary Leon Trotsky as his right hand and leader of the military, dubbed the Red Army. Although the revolution was a success, the RSFSR met the same resistance and distrust as the provisional government did. Knowing this, and the danger of yet another revolution, Lenin needed a way to retain the loyalty of the population. His way of dealing with this was by using terror tactics to force the citizens' loyalty. He used his secret police, the Cheka, led by Felix Dzerzhinsky, to eliminate possible threats to the government. The Cheka had killed at least 12,000 Russian citizens, and arrested many more. The Cheka was effective in dealing with individuals, but it couldn't be used to control the major population. Thus, Lenin employed an educational propaganda campaign, teaching soldiers to read and influence them through cinema, posters, plays, and more. This kept them motivated to fight for and stand by the Bolshevik cause. While these tactics were successful for the most part, some people in Russia were not willing to succumb to the new regime, or its attempts to win their favor. However, they were hardly unified by this resistance. This group of rebels consisted of a broad spectrum of people, including Republicans, liberals, Democrats, royalists, landowners, factory owners, and anyone who was generally opposed to the Bolsheviks, and came to be known as the White Army. The army was barely strung together, and fought with the communist government as much as they did themselves. It was made up of splinter groups in various territories that declared independence from the new government, who had few things in common and little desire to coordinate with one another. Most of the factions of the White Army were created and led by former Tsarist generals and sympathizers, and their forces were made up of volunteers and troops sent by the Allied powers to hinder the RSFSR's growth and possible allegiance to the Central Powers. The first factions of the White Army were started by former figures of the provisional government, such as Alexander Kerensky and General Kornilov. They rallied volunteers to try and fight the new regime, but were swiftly crushed by the Red Army. However, the White Army found success in controlling Ukraine, where the Bolsheviks were particularly unpopular, and soon after, various groups inside Russia began taking sections of the country for their own. However, the White Army was not the main threat to the RSFSR at the time, as the German army was making its way toward St. Petersburg, renamed Petrograd. On March 3, 1918, Lenin had his negotiators sign the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, which ended Russia's participation in the war, but had Russia give up large portions of its territory, including Ukraine, Finland, Poland, Caucasus, and the Baltic provinces. 1.3 million square miles, a third of the entire population, and 3/4 of Russia's iron and coal reserves were lost for the sake of peace. Following the signing of this humiliating treaty, hostility toward the new government had increased, and the country plunged into civil war. The Czechoslovak Legion was able to gain a vast amount of land east of the Volga River in 1918, and forces led by Nikolai Yudenich captured Gatchina, a city only 50 miles from Petrograd. An admiral named Alexander Kolchak had one of the larger forces of the White Army, and took control of eastern Siberia, and captured cities like Omsk and Ufa. Despite collectively surrounding and outnumbering the Red Army, the White Army's lack of communication and unwillingness to cooperate became their downfall. Trotsky was able to address and eliminate the individual groups one by one, eventually wiping out all major threats and mopping up the lesser resistance groups. By 1922, the Civil War had ended, and Russia would be able to focus on rebuilding itself. After the Civil War ended, and Russia could stop standing against opposition, the Russian Socialist Federative Soviet Republic's name was dropped, and gave way to the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, or more commonly known as the Soviet Union. Lenin successfully began the economic recovery of the Union over the next 2 years, but Lenin didn't see a success in the long run. Lenin died in 1924 due to his increasingly poor health, and Joseph Stalin was appointed to succeed him, but his actions took Lenin's work into a completely different direction. Today we stand in the year 2017, 100 years from the time that the Bolsheviks put their foot down and took charge of their nation. Even now we can see the after effects of this revolution in the wake of the Soviet Union. What had started as a group of people standing up to their governments became a powerful offensive against the political norm. While the success of the revolution was short-lived, it had left its marks in history in the minds of people across the world.